Hi, my name is Andrew Terranova, and I'm creating this video in response to my friend Sandy Roberts, whose class wants to know a little bit about what it's like to be an engineer. So, hi, Sandy Roberts class. Um, so I'm an electrical engineer, and um, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people because one of the points I want to make is there are lots of different kinds of engineering. There's lots of different engineering disciplines like electrical, mechanical, chemical, uh, computer science engineering. And then even within those, there are lots of different things that people do with those engineering disciplines. So um, as an electrical engineer, I've done work for the aerospace industry. I've done work for the astrospace industry, like working on satellite systems. I've worked with military radio communication systems. I've worked a lot in networking, information technology networking. I have an electrical engineering degree from Stevens Institute of Technology, where I actually met Sandy Roberts. Let's see. A lot of times you approach problems. Engineers like to solve problems, or they're good at solving problems. Hopefully they like it. So typically you want to understand, what are the requirements going in, or what is the problem I'm trying to solve, and then try to apply their knowledge and skills to answer that question. Let me read off some of the questions that the class sent in here and see what I can tell you. So, how do engineers make and build structures? Well, I'm not a structural engineer, so I don't build structures, so I can't really answer that one for you. How would you characterize your average day on your job? Okay, so I just started a job actually as a solutions engineer. So a solutions engineer typically works for a company that makes some kind of product or service, and a solution engineer works with customers to understand their requirements and see how they can apply the products and services of their company to answer that. So basically it's a sales support role, but it's also an engineering role. Let's see. What's your favorite project you've worked on? Ooh, that's tough. Favorite project I've worked on a lot of different projects. I guess it's really hard to pick one favorite, but when I was still a co-op student in college, I worked in astrospace for a company called GE Astro, and I designed a test system for one of the systems that actually gets shot up into space. They didn't let the co-op student work on the systems that actually got shot up into space, but the systems to test those they did. And it was a digital electronics design project, and from that project I sort of fell in love with doing electronics digital design. So that one was always fun. Um, let's see. How do you find the materials you need? That's a good question. So the materials that you use are very much, there's a lot of aspects there, right? There's what's available, and there's also practical aspects of what's affordable. So, many times in engineering, you're choosing your materials to meet certain requirements. They have to maybe meet a certain specification. Let's say for an electrical component, how much current can it handle? What temperature range does it operate in? And so if the system you're designing or whatever you're designing has to meet certain requirements, then everything inside of it has to meet those requirements. So if you are making a phone and your phone is supposed to operate from, -10 degrees up to 120 degrees, then everything you put inside of it has to operate. And so as you design it, you have to make sure that every single component meets those requirements. What else? How far do you think technology will get in the next 20 years? Boy, if I could answer that authoritatively, I'd probably be very rich, which I'm not. Yeah, it's hard to say. Anybody's guess. Your guess is probably as good as mine because I probably won't be creating the technology for the next 20 years. Probably you will. What else? How long does it take to finish building something really big? Wow. Well, big projects tend to have more than just one person involved, although that's not always true. So often you're working on a team, and it can take years to build a project. Designing a car, for example, probably takes a year to 3 years just to fully design a car from scratch, from start to finish. So that's a fairly complex thing. On the other hand, some fairly impressive things have been designed very quickly when the need was, when it was urgent to get something designed. So It really depends. Projects tend to uh, be constrained by how much money you have, who your resources are, and how much time you have. So sometimes you can spend more money or provide more resources and get something done faster, but sometimes you just can't. Sometimes things can't be sped up. It's probably not that interesting an answer, but that's the way it is. Let's see. How many things do you design and build in one day? Boy, I would say anywhere from 0 to some number. I don't know. I don't always design something. Not every engineer is designing things every day. You're a lot of times you might just be supporting something that you designed or someone else designed. Um, I design things not just for work, but I like to design things for fun too. So I have a 3D printer back there that I design fun stuff on for myself. Or sometimes they're practical, sometimes they're just fun. So I designed this. I designed this shirt. I guess that's not really an engineering thing, but I like to design things just for fun as well as stuff for work. So if I for a while in my career, I wasn't very technical. There was a time period where I was doing more hands-off stuff. I'm getting back into doing more hands-on engineering, which is great. But when I wasn't doing it for work, I found I needed to do something technical and fun for myself. So I would design little electronics projects, and I had little kids, so I did things with like blinky lights and make sounds and stuff. And that eventually led me to starting to an interest in robotics. So for fun, I started making robots, and I did. I still enjoy that, but I did it quite actively for quite a number of years. So um, I find that as an engineer, I do like to design stuff, and when the opportunity at work isn't there, sometimes I make my own opportunities to design stuff. Ba, 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 ba. How long does it take you to make something? It varies a lot. Do you do more physical or technical work? Um, so my work is mostly on a computer. I do a lot of computer work, so not very physical, but I do design. I do like making things with my hands. I have a wood shop. I like to make things out of metal and wood and other materials. So I like both aspects, both the sort of virtual and physical aspects of designing and building things. Is engineering easy or hard? Yes. What is your favorite stuff to make? Robots. Definitely robots. What do you make? Oh, robots. I've made beer, which I guess isn't really engineering. Well, I guess it could be, but in my case, it probably isn't because I'm not very exact. When I make beer, I just do it for fun. I make, you know, I made 3D printed dice with the custom little designs. I make um, this video. I make robots. I make electronic projects. This is just something I didn't plan to show anything, but this is just a little LED cube project. It's just a kit, really. But that's just one random things that are around my desk that I've made. Oh, this one. This was a little um, light up thingy, and you can change the speed it lights it goes at. It's a little electronics project, and I put it in a nice glass globe, and again, those are things that I made for fun. Oh, where is it? I'm gonna pause it. Here's something fun I designed. When my youngest kid was about 3, I made him this. It's just a crazy little light up boxy thing, and the battery might be long dead because it's all poorly designed. Poor design is the batteries are inside and you had to undo a zillion screws to get to it. So that was a poor design. I'd do it differently if I did it again. But you would light up, you'd press different switches and different things would light up. And depending on which switches you pressed, different things would light up. It would change what certain switches did. So the wires are routed through multiple switches. I thought it was such a fun design, and my kids just loved it. They played with it constantly, and honestly, any adult or anybody who saw it would just like press on it. It was, I don't know, it doesn't sound very appealing, but it was very appealing when you had your hands on it. So many people liked it that I decided to make a nicer version of it, which I actually sell as a kit on a company called GMCO's website. They do electronics, and so you can actually buy the fun Lightbox switch on their website. And not that this is an ad or anything, because it's not, but that's just an example of something that I designed mostly for fun, but I turned it into a real kit, a real project that anybody could buy and make. Okay, what else? How did you decide to become an engineer? Interesting story. Well, maybe it is. We'll find out. When I was in high school, I was actually really good at literature and writing. I loved creative writing, and I never thought about being an engineer. But I was always very handy at home. I was fixing things and working on things. And so when I was starting to look for college, I was talking to my mother, and I was like, I don't know what kind of college I want to go to. And my mom just looked at me in like a long, pregnant pause and said, "You're going to be an engineer." And I was like, "What?" And I hadn't really thought about it, but my mom, who obviously knew me well, knew that I was constantly fixing things and trying to figure things out and trying to learn things. And she knew that, like, whenever anybody came to the house to fix something, I was like glued to them, watching, learning how they did it, just by observing it. And it was clear to her that that was my destiny, and she was right. But it wasn't clear to me at the time. So listen to your parents. Sometimes they know you kind of better than you know yourself. You may not want to hear that, but sometimes it's true. Let's see. Do you design more stuff for fun or for work? Yes. Have you ever invented or helped to invent? Yes. I guess that fun Lightbox project would be considered an invention. What inspired your creations? A lot of things I made as a hobby. I initially was inspired to make them as something fun for my kids, but in all honesty, I mostly make them because they're fun for me. Have you made anything that is selling in stores? Oh, yes. I actually want to make another thing. I have an idea for a robots project made out of, again, I just have to reach around on my desk and there's something that I've made or I'm working on. I have a little robot. I wonder if the battery's alive enough to show you. It's a little robot, and it's made out of an Altoid can, and it has these little special kinds of motors called servos. And he's kind of a prototype right now, but he's got two little LED eyes, and he'll like open his lid. He's got another little servo motor there that lifts the lid, and then he walks around and just randomly does fun stuff. And I wanted to make that into a kit and sell that as well. So maybe someday you'll find that. How many different things have you made or invented? I don't know. Like, I just like to make things all the time, do all kinds of projects. I write for Make Magazine. I post a lot of my projects on Make Magazine. I've actually had a project in Popular Science. It was a pneumatic robot hand. I don't know, lots of stuff. What invention are you most proud of? I did like that robot hand I did. It was a cool hand, and a robotic hand that uses air pressure to close and open. It's also a little loud, and it makes some quite funky noises. So.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. I'm just going to try and show you the first finger here. And then you can kind of move each finger individually. You can just kind of program the whole hand. I have another mode here where it's kind of pointing to here. It's supposed to be kind of come this way. I did it mostly to teach myself about pneumatics and soft robotics, which is a field that's been growing quite rapidly. As you know, you don't want any robots that operate around humans or around things that are need to be treated gently, you don't typically want like metal or hard materials to grip things. You want something that has like a more of a soft, compliant grip. If you wanted to pick up a raw egg, for example, or shake a human hand, it's probably best that you don't have a metal claw of death to do that. Why did you decide to be an engineer? I think I covered that one. How do you decide on which ideas to actually make? Oof. You know, a lot of times I come up with ideas and I don't have time to make them right away, and good advice is when you come up with an idea, write it down. Just have a notebook. I've filled through over my life notebooks with different ideas. Just get in the habit of writing your ideas down, because you may not have time to do it right away, but you might want to come back to it someday. So write your ideas down. Are there any things you've made in other countries? So as an engineer, I've had an opportunity to travel around a little bit. I've traveled to London for work. I've traveled to Paris for work. And I traveled to Beijing, China for work, which was very, very interesting. Really nothing to do with being an engineer, but if you have the opportunity to travel in your life, do it. It's a wonderful experience. Anyway, that's me. I'm an engineer, I'm a maker, and I love doing it. I can't imagine having done anything else. Oh, one other point. I'm also a writer, and one thing I want to tell you is if you're thinking about being an engineer or anybody in technology, if you think writing and the ability to communicate well are not important, you're wrong. That's what companies look for. They don't just want somebody with technical talents. They want someone who can express themselves professionally, both verbally, in doing presentations, in writing. So don't ignore that aspect of your brain. It's important too. All right. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.